Hello, I'm Benjamin Gutierrez. I study in Prepatec Campus Cumbres, and this is my research project journal. So, to start with the question, does the use of cell phones affect grades of teenagers? Okay, so in this project, I researched about the use of cell phones amongst teenagers, and my objective was to see if the school grades of teenagers was affected by how much time they use their cell phones on a weekly basis. So this idea occurred to me because I was being distracted on my phone during online classes, and this distraction reflected on my grades as well. So I decided to create a project in which I researched the internet, and I also did some research by myself, creating a Google Forms in which teenagers of Prepa Tech shared how much time they spent on their cell phones each week and their first partial grades. This with the intention of seeing if the time they spent on their cell phones really did matter or not. Okay, so the relevance of this question is that this project has a lot of relevance since getting good grades at school is one of the most essential things in teenagers' daily lives. The usage of cell phones these days has risen a lot, and everybody has one, and they use it for a lot of things since it is a multi-purpose tool. So, with a tool this powerful as a cell phone and some internet, it is very easy to get distracted. And this, of course, affects teenagers when they have to learn and concentrate at school. For me, the importance of this project is to make teenagers aware of the threat they are facing with such a small product as a cell phone. And teenagers need to learn how and when to use it and the importance it has to control their time, their effort, and their work. So, my hypothesis is that the original hypothesis that I proposed for this research project was that the amount of time that we use our cell phones does affect our performance in school. I derived this hypothesis because before I initiated my own research, I browsed the internet and found that most of the information was based around the same type of problems that teenagers had when it came to their grades. I researched and found several schools who had done some research, and their conclusion was always the same. The experimental design, in order to be sure if cell phones are really making an impact in the performance that teenagers deliver, needed to prove this. I needed to prove this hypothesis myself. I made a survey which consisted in several questions regarding the cell phones and their usage amongst high schoolers of Prepa Tech Cumbres. The objective was to be 100% sure that this was the case because even though we have all these data, I need to know if the same problem was being experienced in Mexico and more importantly in Prepatec. I had to make sure that this problem was a real thing amongst teenagers. I knew to see these problems was common or if it just happened to certain types of people. All right, so the results after evaluating all the data, we can see that spending many time on your phone can cause a problem when trying to study and get better grades because in fact it is very distracting, but we can also see that this is not true for everybody. Each of the students has a different way of spending your time and also their free time. It is clearly better to stop using cell phones too much because they deliver it because believe it or not they cause an addiction. Cell phones do cause an addiction. It is scientifically proven, and it is safer to keep it away from you. It is safer to keep away from using your cell phone and trying to concentrate more on your assignment and really focusing while studying. So here we have the indexes, some graphs, some charts, some pie chart, the percentage of grades amongst the teenagers I made the survey to, the time each one spends on their cell phone. Here we can see the rate of time. While it is longer, the rate of your grade will be lower. So here we can see 75 and 85 as their partial grade of the first partial. They use their cell phones more or less 18 hours a week or a day. I should say a day. And So the ones that got 86, 91, and 92 and 100 don't use their cell phones as much. But here we can see a slight increase in the amount of time that most of the people that got 92 and 100 have. Okay, so for the discussion, the results of the experimentation can be hard to believe at first for many people between the age of 17 and 19, because we are so used to believing that using our cell phones is just fine and that doesn't cause any issues. But in reality, it does cause some kind of problems while focusing and paying attention in class, especially during online classes, which we know now is our new reality. This experiment was done with the purpose of creating a correct state of mind for future generations in which we'll grow up with even more technology, and it will be easier for them to distract in the future. So they can be cautious with products like these, which create a habit and a dependence. In conclusion, after completing the investigation, I was shocked that my prediction was correct. At first, I believed that I was the only one having this issue, but in fact, the data shows that most of the people who use their cell phones from 40 to 70 hours a week are more likely to have bad grades at school and have difficulty paying attention and struggling with being organized. And as I said, it is not the case for everybody, but it is true for enough people for us to be sure that the best decision is to keep the cell phones away from class during and while studying. Doing this will create a better environment for students to work and learn. Here are the references of my research project and my contact information. Thank you for listening. This was my research project journal, and I'm Benjamin Gutierrez.